Alaska Airlines has teamed up with Hawaiian Airlines to create new nonstop international flights. Go to alaskaair.com or hawaiianairlines.com, and I'll tell you more details later in the show. Welcome to The Leftovers. I'm Rachel Bell. The Leftovers is audio left on the cutting room floor from last week's Your Last Meal interview. And today, you'll hear never-before-heard cuts from Food Network star and New York Times bestselling author Alton Brown. If you missed last week's full episode of Your Last Meal with Alton, I recommend listening to that first. But if you're all caught up, here is The Leftovers with Alton Brown. Alton just released his 10th book, but this is his first book of essays, his first memoir-style book where he says he dug deep and got personal. The writing is so good. The essays are thoughtful, often funny, and they tell a lifetime worth of food stories. Just to give context to this first cut, I received a galley of the book only several hours before my interview with Alton. You took a DNA test like so many people have, and you were like so many
really
people.
Did read the book,
I did.
You just got it.
I know. I skimmed. I heavily skimmed. And you were disappointed. Like, I hear so many people disappointed by this to discover that you're 83% British. So many people disappointed to find out they're just, white European.
I'm the whitest of white guys. The best thing is that I don't have English teeth. I've got better teeth than that. But yeah, I'm Midlands England with a little bit of French thrown in. When what I really wanted was just a few drops of Ashkenazi blood because I adore that cuisine so much. So yeah, I'm not exotic. I'm a piece of Melba toast.
Tell me why you're interested. As someone who is Ashkenazi, why do you want our cuisine? What do you like about it?
Oh my God. Number one, it's delicious. I have my whole life been drawn to that table. Part of it's the history, part of it's the tradition, part of it is the deep spiritual connectivity of the food, and part of it's because it freaking tastes awesome. It's just, to me, the best cuisine on earth. And I love a lot of cuisines. I adore Japanese cuisine. I love Cuban cuisine. I like a lot of cuisine. But I did hold out hope for just a little bit of Ashkenazi. I think it is the most glamorously, I don't know, there's something really exotic about it. I yearned for that and was hopeful, and I didn't get it.
The glamorous gefilte.
Congratulations on all that Ashkenazi blood.
Thank you. Got it. Well, you had a very interesting and early exposure to Jewish food. I was really interested to read that there was a Gentile day camp program at a Jewish camp in your area.
Very, very, very famous Jewish camp called Camp Barney in North Georgia. All the Jewish kids would come to do sleepaway camp from like Brooklyn, and Queens and places like that. So I had to get used to the accents. But they ran a day camp for Gentiles and Gentile kids. We got to go for the daytime, and very often we would be fed basically deli nosh that they had shipped in from, I don't know where they got this food, because in Cleveland, Georgia in 1970, trust me, there were no bagels. At all. But they did. They got this food in, and they would feed it to us with no explanation whatsoever of what we were eating. And I was just entranced. I mean, the first time that I really locked mouth with some lox, I was like, did somebody just leave this out? What happened here? Why is this this is like gummy? It's not a natural color. And yet I couldn't stop eating it. So I remember that very, very, very well. That first bagel cream cheese with lox was, an onion and capers. They gave us capers. It was like, what is this? What is this sorcery? This caper. I didn't know what they were, but I couldn't get enough of them.
When was the next time you had it? Like, was it something that showed up later and you went, oh, this, or did you seek it out?
Well, yeah. I had gone home. This is not in the book, but I had gone home and I talked to my dad about this, and he laughed his head off about the fact that I referred to bagels as cement donuts. But he realized that, my kids got a thing. And so he had quite a few Jewish friends, both in Georgia and back in California, where I had been born. And so he plugged me in. He got me going into that. But I don't think I encountered capers again for quite some time. Probably my first trip to New York City, which was when I was in high school.
And now, a lightning round with Alton Brown. Ooh, that kind of rhymes. Number one, what is your perfect birthday cake / birthday dessert if you're not a cake person?
I am a cake person. I adore cake, and I don't understand why we can't get more good cake. Classic Southern caramel cake is absolutely my jam. And that's a yellow cake that's got actually some caramel in it. And then that frosting, which is not quite butterscotch, not quite fudge, but caramel, but not like stringy caramel. And it's very much a Southern thing. And it was my father's favorite cake, and it's my favorite cake. If that's not around, I'll take devil's food with white 7-minute icing in a pinch.
So you're saying that there's actual caramel in the batter of the yellow cake?
Yes, there's burnt sugar, that flavor in the cake, but then also the frosting is because it's got to have a slight grain, almost like fudge, but that deep burnt flavor. And that's just amazing. There aren't too many places where you can still get them.
The first essay in your book is about watching Saturday morning cartoons and cereal commercials. What was your favorite cereal as a kid, and what's your favorite cereal now?
Oh, Captain Crunch. And I write about Captain Crunch. I'm not going to give away what the essay's specifically about, but anything that was the kind of mix that Captain Crunch had. So Quisp, which had a little alien on the front with a propeller on his head on the box. I was very, very big on. Now Captain Crunch, they've changed the recipe too many times. But if you can get old Captain Crunch and make it sound like Italian furniture. Do you remember Grape Nuts?
I love Grape Nuts. I like old grandma cereals.
Oh, Grape Nuts. Grape Nuts taste the same going out as it does going in, but I still love it. That there's something about that crunchiness that really gets me going. And I don't think they make it anymore, but I actually did.
They make Grape Nuts.
Oh, they do. They still make Grape Nuts.
Mm-hmm.
I had some boxes that I actually stole from the house of a dead relative, and I'm not ashamed.
Did you eat it, or you are keeping it as an heirloom?
It's all gone. Yeah.
Go get yourself some Grape Nuts. You deserve it.
Okay, I didn't know they still made it. I got to get out more.
Yes. You are famously not a fan of single-use gadgets. Which is the most egregious? Alton is standing in his kitchen, and he immediately whips around and starts rummaging through a drawer. If you want to see this happening, if you want to see Alton Brown's kitchen, there is a video up on my Instagram grid right now. You can find me at Hello Rachel Bell. Oh, you have it?
I think I have it. I don't think I've thrown out everyone that she brought into the house.
Oh, she's brought them in. He holds up a silver metal garlic press, and the expression on his face would make you believe that the garlic press just farted. The garlic press.
Loathsome, hideous, bad at literally everything, including the thing that it's designed to be done. My wife loves them, and when we did our live internet show during COVID, and she talked about them, so people started sending them to her.
No,
there was a point where we had like 7 garlic presses.
It's rude.
A little triggered.
I know. I'm sorry. Next question. Well, they're also the worst thing to clean. I think about this a lot. The relationship that you
throw
have.
them in the trash. That's how you clean a garlic press.
Yes. Although I do think it would be kind of soothing to like get a toothpick and like poke through every hole to get that stupid like
That's
skin
like some
of garlic.
kind of crazy ASMR kind of thing where
Probably.
You're like, it's like, well, I don't have any more zits to pop, so I'm going to stick toothpicks through my garlic press.
What is the least chefy thing that you eat that would surprise people because you're supposed to be this TV chef who eats better than everybody else?
But I don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I have some seriously trashy tastes. Besides the aforementioned cereals, which are pretty down there, I put ketchup on things.
What kind of things? You can make eye contact.
Leftover pizza. My favorite thing is to take pizza the second day and put ketchup on it and eat it cold.
This is such a strong memory for me. I was taking the Amtrak years ago, 10 years ago, from Seattle to Portland, and I looked over and this woman across the aisle had a little Pizza Hut personal pan pizza, and on every bite, she squirted an entire ketchup packet.
That was my mom.
It's like a reverse your mom joke.
I don't exactly. I don't know where I got it, but it's a super trashy thing. My wife, I think, actually So we've only been married 6 years. I think she almost left me because I'll eat pizza out for 4 days and I'll still eat it. I'll do it. I'll tap that
I
thing.
do that too.
I had left this pizza out for, I don't know, it was at least 2 days old out of the refrigerator. And I got it down and smelled it. Heinz ate it. And she was like, I'm just going to go now.
Into her garlic press chamber.
Yes. Like she's got a right to be judgy.
You know?
That may be the worst.
I heard you on an old episode of Bon Appetit podcast when Adam Rappaport was still there. And they were talking to you about Thanksgiving and you said you used box stock and it was like, it's like they fell and they hit the floor and they both died.
I may have mended my ways on that one. I make stock in massive amounts now and keep them frozen for Thanksgiving. I may have been at that point in time being provocative, trying to make a mark.
Yeah, you did.
I have not kept box broth or stock around for a while. I have found a butcher in my area who will sell me chicken carcasses after everything's been stripped off of them. And I buy them by the bag and I've got a really, really big pot and I make stock now, maybe like 10 gallons and freeze it. So I don't do that anymore. Although my wife loves, I'm going to see if there's some in here.
He runs off again. This time he's rummaging through his fridge. Is it better than bouillon?
This is me. This is lard. I keep that on it. But he keeps this stuff that she really loves that's called better than bouillon.
I love that. It's the best.
She uses this stuff like on wounds. You burn yourself. You're like, just put some of that better.
It's a salve.
She asked me what I thought was in it. I was like,
MSG.
Salt, brown. Yes, MSG, brown something, and salt.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with
No.
it. But it's not stock because it doesn't have mouthfeel. But it does have a lot of flavor. She swears by it.
It's good.
In the first aid kit, literally.
I have to put that in mine. I have like 2 jars from Costco just sitting there. It should be in my first aid kit.
I don't think anything can live. Like bacteria can't live where it's been because it's saltier than Lot's wife. I mean, it's salty.
It is very salty. On last week's episode of Your Last Meal, Alton told me a wedding magazine once approached him and asked him to write a piece on the top 10 kitchen gadgets every new couple should have. But Alton wanted to write about the only thing he thinks every new couple needs: a kitchen table. The wedding magazine decided they didn't want Alton to write this article after all.
All the family business that happens there and all of the communal activities of eating happen at that table. So to me, you can have all the tools in the world. You can have the finest ovens, refrigerators, whatever. If you don't have that place where you break bread, and I'm tapping it because I'm actually at ours right now, then you're kind of missing the point. If you're starting a family, you're starting a community, which is a couple, a married couple's community. You need that, and you need to pay attention to it and make it be important.
Alton's connection to the kitchen table instantly made me think of another chef friend and his connection to a kitchen staple: the stove. Specifically, his mother's 70-year-old stove. Let's go to Seattle's Hot Stove Society Cooking School, where I interviewed restaurateur and chef Tom Douglas in front of a live audience. I thought about you first because I know that you have a really special relationship with your mom's stove and also a sort of comical relationship with her deep freezer. Tell me about your mom's stove.
We consider my mom's stove, which I inherited a couple years back when she passed, as our stove spirit animal. It's a 6-burner, 2-oven, 2-broiler Wedgwood with a white porcelain and all chrome features on the top with cast iron grates. And this is the stove that I cleaned every day when I was a kid.
It looks very well taken care of. I don't even see any chips in the enamel.
Yeah, exactly. There is one chip in the enamel. When they moved from Cleveland to Delaware, it kind of got a little crunch in the moving van, but it's in a good spot. You don't necessarily notice it. Anyway, I love that stove. Early on, my mother was not a fatalist, but she always knew she was going to die at some point. She took care of both her mother and her mother-in-law as they passed, and hated the family squabbles about who gets what. And so she was determined 30 years before she died. She took us around the house and said, I want you to put your name on things that you want now.
That's so fun.
So that when I do go, blah, blah, blah. So I put my name on the stove, as did my sister and my brother. But I'm the only cook in the house. I'm the only one that went into cooking. So I trumped all of them. And so here we are today. I got the stove. I went back and picked it up myself. It cost me $10,000 to get it here.
Whoa.
In like one of those pods. Anyway, that's the stove. That's the story of the stove. They bought it in 1953 for $260. And
Which sounds like maybe a little bit expensive for being that old.
Huge. Well, let's put it this way. They had a 10-year payment plan on it.
Wow.
$260 stove. Yeah. They were good budgeters.
Was this common back in those days if you moved house that you would take your stove, or was it because they loved this stove that they moved it to Delaware?
My mother loved this stove like it was a child. And I will tell you, there's some scratches on it because one of the guests in her house thought they would clean the stove by taking a knife to get off a crusty and on the chrome. And there's some scratches on the chrome, and it killed her to the day she died.
How many years did your mom serve for murdering that person?
Yeah, exactly. 70 years she cooked on that stove.
70 years.
The same amount of time that she was in her bridge club. So here, if you come to the hot stove, you'll see a picture of me taking her to bridge club when I was visiting one time. She's half my size.
Do you have memories of the stove specifically from being a kid? Did it stand out to you?
100%. And I really remember it when I became a chef. I've been in Seattle 47 years now. So when I would visit home, the joy of cooking on that stove. And I always, well, I shouldn't say this like this, but I remember getting yelled at by my mother. I'm a grown man getting yelled at because, in the restaurants, when you open the oven door and you pop the pan and you kind of flip it up with your knee. I did that with the stove. I popped up the oven door and it made a little slam and my mother went off the hook. And first time I had gotten yelled at like that since I was a teenager.
What is your mom's name?
Mary Gertrude. So this stove is Gertie.
Gertie. Did you name it that after your mom passed, or was it always?
Well, it had to be after she passed, or she would have smacked me upside the head again because she hated that nickname. My dad called her Gert, and that just drove her wild. Matter of fact, when I inherited some money from my mom when she passed, we bought a minivan because my daughter was pregnant with twins, and it is now named Gertie also.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. What are some of the best things that came out of that stove or that oven for you?
Everything. She cooked for 10 people, 3 meals a day. So
wow.
Yeah. So from a turkey, and the double oven thing is somewhat unusual in many households, especially in that era. So, you turkey in one side, baked potatoes in the other, whatever it was. So I always loved her pot roast. A dish that I still make today. At Easter, we always had a bone-in leg of lamb, and she always cooked it well done, kind of Greek style. It was definitely Irish Catholic style, but the idea of that bone-in, well-done leg of lamb, to me, I associate with Greek cooking, and I still love that kind of fall-off-the-bone leg of lamb.
What is a dish that you think she would like to be remembered for?
Anything. She was a proud cook, and she cooked a lot.
Yeah.
And while her mother was probably a finer cook than she was, but she cooked for a proud crowd cook. So often putting dinner on the table for 25 people. Super proud of what she could do and how she managed her budgets. 8 kids my dad never made more than $36,000 in a year in his entire career. And so she was always on a budget. We never knew that we were rich or poor. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Does the stove still work?
It does. It's not hooked up right now, but it 100% still works.
So why the decision to bring it here to your cooking school than to install it in your own kitchen at home?
I have a commercial stove at home, twice as big as this.
Twice as big?
Yeah.
You have 12 burners at home?
I have 6 burners and 24-inch griddle and 24-inch broiler.
Wow.
2 full-size sheet pan size ovens with a hood system. And so I need the firepower. For example, stoves like this is an old Wedgwood. Stoves like this, the hottest burner on this stove would be 12,000 BTUs. My lowest burner at my home stove is 32,000 BTUs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I can get some serious firepower going.
I've been in your kitchen because we had Scrapple together once, which is also from the part of the world that you're from, but I didn't notice your gigantic stove.
Well, thank you for that.
You're welcome. Yeah. You have a good story about, is it the deep freezer or was it her fridge? You and your siblings having a contest of who could find the oldest thing in there?
Well, my mother was a budgeter, a frugal woman. She died with over $1 million estate, like I said, without ever having made over $36,000 in a year.
Wow.
She had 2 chest freezers in the basement. Once the kids left, she got herself down to 1 chest freezer and 1 stand-up fridge in the basement. When she died, we always had a joke about what we would find in Mom's freezer because she didn't throw anything away. And matter of fact, on the foot of her bed, my sister sat for an hour with her. An hour later, she was gone. But for the hour before that she died, she went through the list in her head of what was still in that chest freezer. There's chicken breast. There's some steaks, filet mignon that Tom cut that he got at Costco for $11.99 a pound. And, cookies and blah, blah, blah. That she wanted to make sure it got used up. And then she also said, we bought that bra at Kohl's last week, and I don't think I'll be needing it.
Oh, my God.
So make sure you take that $15 bra back to Kohl's and get a refund. And then an hour later, she's gone.
So her last words were Kohl's bra return.
So anyway, we had a little contest to see what the oldest thing we would find in the freezer was. And I won the contest, and it was pine nuts. Little tiny bag of pine nuts that it must have just slipped down to the bottom. And they were 30 years old. Yeah.
Did she label them herself?
Yes, she did.
30 years old?
Yeah.
Did you try anything?
Of course, we ate it all.
Yeah. Did you eat those pine nuts?
Yes, we did. I made a little basil pesto.
Really?
Yeah, why
you
not?
made the 30-year-old pine nuts into
bet.
pesto? And it didn't taste bad?
No, it didn't taste bad. They were in the freezer.
Huh. Interesting.
They have very light flavor in the first place.
Yeah.
And then with basil and garlic and olive oil, it's like, it's no problem. But it felt good to eat them. She would have been proud.
Yeah. So one more question. I'm just curious if you have any thoughts or feelings or attachments to your kitchen table or the kitchen table you grew up with. Do you have sentimental value attached?
And our table at home, my father-in-law and I made ourselves out of bubinga, and it's 10 feet long and seats 14, and it hasn't moved since the day we put it in. We built it on its back in my garage. Then 6 of us got together and kind of got it through the front doors into the...
Like an Amish barn raising.
It was almost 1,000 pounds. It's now down to about 800 pounds.
Where did the wood go?
It dehydrated, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And anyway, it took us over 6 months to build, and it has 12 coats of finish on the top, and it's just a beautiful table. It's been the host of 1 million parties already.
What year did you make it?
Well, we've been in that house 29 years, so... maybe 27 years ago, 28 years ago.
Yeah. I think a lot of people have abandoned their kitchen table for the most part. People eat on the couch a lot. People eat while they're watching something. Do you still eat at the table when you're eating dinner at home?
100%.
Every time?
Every time.
Yeah. Chef Tom Douglas was actually the very first guest on Your Last Meal in August 2016. You can tell he's an amazing storyteller. So I recommend, if you haven't heard it already, stretch out your little pointer finger, get her all nimble, and then scroll back to the very beginning. August 2016, Tom Douglas. Last week on the show, we heard from Alan Salkin, author of From Scratch, The Uncensored History of the Food Network. Alan talked about the unlikely birth of the network and all of the flubs along the way. And last week, I promised I would share one more of Alan's stories with you about Martha Stewart and Ina Garten, host of the Food Network show Barefoot Contessa.
She had this store in East Hampton, and Martha Stewart was a customer, and there were many people who were telling her you should have a TV show. And so Martha convinced her finally to try taping a TV show, Martha Stewart, because Ina had also written a couple things and recipes, and she'd written some cookbooks. They were in Martha Stewart Living's magazine. So they go to her house, and they tape the classic show in her house. She tells them, please, be careful of my carpets, take off your shoes. So what happens is she cuts herself in her first minute on television. They destroy her rugs with their muddy boots. She's living in the country and it's on a septic system. The septic backs up. The toilets aren't working. So at the end of the filming of a few episodes as pilots, she says, thank you very much. Here's a champagne toast. Now get the hell out of my house. And she then later sends a bill for the champagne.
I thought you were going to say the carpet cleaning. Wow.
Probably too. And then Martha sees the tapes. And it's so bad. And Martha doesn't like that Ina is using Fiesta ware, which is the same cookware that Martha's using. And she doesn't like the competition. Martha orders all those tapes destroyed. And truly, I've never seen them. Now, there's an executive at Food Network who also goes to East Hampton and knows the Barefoot Contessa store and loves Ina and wants to try again. So what they do is they find the producer of Nigella Lawson's shows. Now, Nigella's shows are shot on film, or they were then, or film-like substances. The narration can be done off camera. You don't have to talk while you cook. You're not really always speaking to camera. It's really about her lifestyle, the people around her, the love of cooking, and that becomes the show, The Barefoot Contessa. And thank God, because she's the most beloved Food Network star. And the whole thing, all the narrative, that's all because of a good producer who got that out of her. And of course, eventually, when she makes enough money, she builds an extra building on her property that is an exact replica of her real kitchen. So nobody has to come into her house anymore.
Keep her carpets clean. That's a good story. And that was The Leftovers with Seattle chef Tom Douglas, journalist and author Alan Salkin, and of course, Alton Brown. Thank you so much. This was so fun. I really enjoyed chatting with you.
Thank you for being willing to stick around while I worked out my technology.
Of course, we love a good technology here.
But you've got the good microphone.
I do. This is a PBS microphone, so, we fancy.
Oh, PBS microphone. What does it smell like? Get in there close. Smell it.
Tote bags?
Tote bags. That's it. It smells like tote bags. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Take care. Have a good tour.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, thank you.
Alton's new book, Food for Thought, is out now. And he's currently on tour promoting the book and doing live shows across the country. You can find links to tickets in the show notes. The Leftovers and Your Last Meal are both products of Seattle's Cascade PBS. This episode was mixed and mastered by Sarah Bernard, with editing and production assistance from Maliha Syed. Original theme music by Prom Queen. I created, host, and co-produced The Leftovers and Your Last Meal. I also host a TV show on Cascade PBS called The Nosh. We put out our first pilot season last April. You can watch anytime at cascadepbs.org. And we are in the editing process right now on season 2, which will come out in April and run all the way through the end of May. If you live in the Seattle area, you'll be able to watch on the TV. Otherwise, that is also available at cascadepbs.org. And I wrote a cookbook called Open Sesame. It came out in November, and if you love tahini, sesame oil, black sesame, sesame seeds, you may want to pick it up. Link in bio. I'm Rachel Bell, and this is The Leftovers. You know who has the best airplane snacks? Alaska Airlines. Duh. Their signature fruit and cheese platter with Beecher's and Tillamook cheeses, farm-to-bar chocolates from Cho, and Seattle's Fremont Brewing even makes a special IPA just for Alaska passengers to enjoy. And starting May 12th, Alaska is offering daily nonstop flights between Seattle and Tokyo. Starting in October, nonstop service between Seattle and Seoul. Alaska Airlines has teamed up with Hawaiian Airlines. So satisfy your cravings for Japan and book your trip now at alaskaair.com and hawaiianairlines.com.